Hello everyone, I am Dr. Avinash. Today I'll be talking about peri-implant diseases. This video is made for undergraduate students to understand about peri-implant diseases. What are the causes for implant failure? The causes for implant failure may be many. These are broadly categorized into surgical, host-related, implant loading, prosthetic causes, peri-implant diseases. Today, we'll be talking in detail about peri-implant diseases. Peri-implant diseases are mainly of two types, peri-implant mucositis and peri-implantitis. What is peri-implant mucositis? It is an inflammatory response limited to the soft tissue surrounding the functional implants. So as we see in this picture, there is inflammation in the soft tissue, but in radiograph there is no bone loss. What is peri-implantitis? It is an inflammatory response that involves loss of marginal bone around the functional implant. We can appreciate that over here there is bone loss as well as there is inflammation of the soft tissues. What are the clinical features of peri-implant mucositis? The clinical features of peri-implant mucositis are: it would have pocket depth more than 4 mm, bleeding on probing would be present, and suppuration would be present. Sometimes there might be dull pain in the affected area. If we talk about histopathology, it would be similar to gingivitis. There will be increase in neutrophils, breakdown of collagen, and there will be some repair process which would take place. So we would see those cells as well. And later stages, we would start seeing lymphocytes, macrophages, and mast cells, which are said to be secondary inflammatory cells. Peri-implant mucositis is reversible if it is detected early and treated. If it is left untreated, it would progress to peri-implantitis. So now let's understand what are the clinical features of peri-implantitis. You would mainly see vertical bone loss, which is appreciated by a radiograph. We would see peri-implant pockets. Bleeding on probing would definitely be present. There may or may not be exudate. Mucosal swelling would be present. There will be erythema, but in spite of all this, there may not be pain. Even if there is pain, it would be of very dull in nature. Histopathology and microbiology of peri-implantitis. There will be more of secondary inflammatory cells. These are lymphocytes, macrophages, etc. And there will be osteoclasts as well present, which would be responsible for the bone loss. If we have to talk about microbiology, in shallow pockets there will be almost all the microorganisms, but mainly it would be gram-positive facultative cocci and gram-negative anaerobic cocci rods, which would be lesser in number in case of shallow pockets, which would gradually increase as the disease progresses. And in deeper pockets, we would see vibrious organisms as well. Further, going ahead, if we have to classify peri-implantitis, it can be further classified as early, moderate, and advanced stages. In early stage, the probing depth would be greater than 4 mm, bleeding and suppuration would be present, and bone loss would be less than 25% of the implant length. In moderate, the probing depth would be greater than 6 mm, bleeding and suppuration would be present, and bone loss would be 25 to 50% of the implant length. And in advanced stage, the probing depth would be greater than 8 mm, bleeding and suppuration would be present, and bone loss would be greater than 50% of the implant length. Then we also have something called as retrograde peri-implantitis. Here, just like retrograde periodontitis, the infection or inflammation would start from the periapical region. As we see in this picture, the adjacent tooth has been root canal treated and it has been inadequately treated. That's why there is periapical infection. Since it is very close to the implant area, the implant would get affected and infected from the periapical region. If you see the coronal aspect of the implant, it is pretty much healthy, whereas the bone loss is happening in the periapical region. So such cases are termed as retrograde periimplantitis. Now once we know there is periimplantitis or periimplant mucositis, we will have to manage these cases. The primary objectives of managing these cases would be to achieve plaque control, debridement and decontamination, establishing a proper maintenance program. The management can be done under the following headings. Firstly, patient self-administered management, professional non-surgical management, and in case of periimplantitis, again it can be surgical or non-surgical, and management of retrograde periimplantitis. In patient self-administered management, we mainly focus on brushing technique, use of correct toothpaste, and use of antimicrobial rinses, flossing, use of interdental brushes, or using oral irrigators. And sometimes we may also prescribe application of topical antibacterial gel. And systemic antibiotics should be taken by the patients if it has been prescribed. And probiotic lactobacillus reuteri containing tablets are said to be helpful in altering the plaque ecology. Okay, so these are the pictures wherein a patient is using interdental brush and water floss is being used for a thorough debridement of the plaque from the implant region. Then we have professional non-surgical treatment. Here, mechanical plaque control is done by a professional using hand instruments or powered instruments. As you all are aware, on the implant surfaces, we should be avoiding using the metal scaler tips. So hence, plastic scalers are used, or there are tips available which can be adapted onto the metal tips and used on the implant region. Also, chemical plaque control can be done. Here, local delivery of antibiotics, use of chlorhexidine irrigation, phosphoric acid, oxygen and saline irrigation can be done. Further, different non-metal instruments which are used in non-surgical management are use of rubber cups, metal instruments. If you are using metal instruments, it is to trim the processes which can be burrs, where you can use burrs be done. Microbiological test has to be done so that we can prescribe appropriate antibiotics. Local antimicrobials can be given, systemic antimicrobials can be given at this stage, and we have to disinfect the titanium surfaces by using antiseptic, air polishing. We can also use lasers. We have to disinfect the titanium surfaces. This can be done by use of antiseptics, air polishing and laser. Also, any processes to be corrected, it can be corrected in this stage. For example, if the surface of the processes is rough in the cervical region and it is aiding in plaque retention, then it can be smoothened to create a self-cleansing area so that there is no plaque accumulation. In the surgical management, we can do open flap debridement, and we have to decontaminate the surface of the implants. The regeneration can be done over here, use of bone grafts and other regenerative materials like PRF, PRP, all this can be done. And guided tissue regeneration, guided bone regeneration, access surgery. Access surgery in case if there is bone loss and we have to access that area to debride that particular region and also to place bone graft, it can be done. Resective surgery and regenerative surgery can be performed at this stage. In retrograde periimplantitis, we just have to identify the cause and treat the cause and eliminate the source of infection. There is also a protocol proposed by Lang and Linde, which is called as cumulative interceptive and supportive therapy. Here, based on the probing depth, the treatment is been suggested. If the probing depth is less than 3 mm, then we see whether there is presence of plaque or bleeding on probing. If there is no presence of plaque and there is no bleeding on probing, then no treatment would be required. If there is presence of plaque and bleeding on probing is present, then mechanical debridement and polishing of the prosthesis, including the implants, is done. Further, if the probing depth is 4 to 5 mm, along with the procedures which we do for probing depth less than 3 mm, we also have to do antiseptic cleansing. Further, if the probing depth is greater than 5 mm, we just take a radiograph to confirm the bone loss. If there is no bone loss, then manage it like how you do if the probing depth is 4 to 5 mm. That is, you can just do antiseptic cleansing and also do mechanical debridement and polishing. Whereas if the bone loss is less than 2 mm, then you can administer systemic or local antibiotic therapy. Whereas if the bone loss is greater than 2 mm, then we need to consider regenerative or resective osseous surgery along with the other protocols which we follow. To summarize, though there are a lot of similarities between peri-implant disease and periodontal disease, it would be different because there is no periodontal ligament around the implants. However, the management protocol will be similar. Correct diagnosis and timely treatment and following CIST protocol can be effective in preventing loss of implant. Thank you for your patient listening. Hope this brief video was helpful for you. If you have any questions, kindly post it in the comment section.